My name is Maya Cole. I am 30 years old. I work as a speech therapist at a children's hospital in Austin, Texas. 3 days before the dinner that changed everything, my dad called me on a Wednesday evening. I was sitting in my office finishing notes on my last patient, a 6-year-old boy named Eli who had not spoken a full sentence in 4 months after a bad accident. That afternoon, he had said 3 words to me for the first time. I was still smiling about it when my phone buzzed. Dad. I picked up. He did not say hello. He said, "Your brother is bringing his girlfriend Saturday. I need you here by 3 to help set up. Do not be late and do not make things awkward." That was the whole call. No how are you, no thank you. Just instructions. I sat there in the quiet office and thought about my mother. She passed away 2 years ago, breast cancer. In her last days, she held my hand and said, "Keep this family together, Maya. Promise me." That promise is the only reason I still make that drive. If you are watching this, please subscribe and drop your city and time in the comments. I love knowing where you are watching from. Now, let me take you to that Saturday evening. My father, Donald Cole, was a high school football coach for 28 years. In our town, that meant everything. People bought him coffee. They named streets after his plays. When he retired 4 years ago, the local paper put his photo on the front page. Then the lights went out. No more games, no more coach. Just Donald sitting in a recliner, waiting for someone to make him feel important again. That someone is my older brother, Ryan. Ryan is 33. He sells medical equipment to hospitals. He is good at it, but the way my father talks about him, you would think Ryan had discovered a cure for cancer. And then there is me. I finished my master's degree in speech-language pathology. 3 years of graduate school. Clinical hours that left me driving home at midnight. My dad showed up 40 minutes late to my graduation, sat in the back row, and afterward said, "So you are done with school now? Good." 2 months later, Ryan closed his first big sales deal. Dad threw a backyard party, invited all the neighbors, wore a proud dad apron he has never once put on for me. I pulled into the driveway at 3:02 p.m. Ryan's truck was parked right in the middle, so I had to squeeze my car against the fence. Of course. Dad pointed toward the kitchen without looking up. Plates need washing. Food needs setting out. Chop, chop. I went upstairs first to put my bag down. I opened the door to my old room and stopped. My mother's shelf was gone. The one that held her collection of small painted birds, 41 of them, collected from antique shops and flea markets across Texas over 20 years. In its place was a large television and a shelf of fishing gear. I went back downstairs. "Dad, where are Mom's birds?" He did not look up. "Box them up. They were just collecting dust. They're in the garage with the yard sale stuff." Yard sale? He was going to sell my mother's birds at a yard sale. I opened my mouth. Then I heard Ryan laughing in the living room. I closed it again and went to wash the plates. Guests arrived by 5. My Aunt Linda came first. She hugged me tight and held on a little too long, the way people do when they are sorry about something they do not know how to say. The Harmons from next door came, the couple who brought food to our house every day for 3 weeks after Mom died. Dad lined everyone up in the living room like a pre-game huddle. He clapped Ryan on the back. "You all know my son, regional sales rep. Just closed a deal covering 4 hospitals across the state. That is my boy." Then he glanced at me. I was standing by the dining table, holding a bread basket. And this is Maya. She works at a hospital, helps out with kids. Helps out. I have a master's degree. I treat children who cannot speak. But sure, helps out. My Aunt Linda caught my eye across the room, her lips pressed together, an apology she did not know how to say out loud. Then the doorbell rang. Dad's voice boomed. That must be her. The door opened. She was tall. Dark hair, warm smile, a bottle of wine in one hand. She looked kind. She looked like someone who laughs easily and means it. Ryan stepped forward. Everyone, this is Jade. Jade shook my dad's hand. She said something warm about the house. She bent down to greet my grandmother properly. She was good with people. Then she turned toward me. I was standing 3 feet away, holding the bread basket, wearing my mother's old apron. Jade's smile stopped. Not rudely, not with coldness, more like someone who just had the air knocked out of them quietly. Her eyes stayed on my face. Her lips parted slightly. I knew this face. I knew it from the waiting area outside therapy room 4. This woman sitting in a plastic chair every Monday and Wednesday, sometimes reading, sometimes just staring at the wall, sometimes with quiet tears she tried to hide. She whispered, "Maya?" The room went still. We sat down to eat. Dad had arranged the seats, of course. Ryan and Jade on his right. Me at the far end next to Grandma, near the kitchen door. I had been cooking for 2 hours. Roast chicken with herbs, the way Mom used to make it. Homemade bread. A potato dish I remembered from my childhood. Nobody mentioned the food. Nobody ever does. Halfway through dinner, Jade looked across the table at me. She set her fork down. Her voice was calm, but there was something firm underneath it, like a wire pulled tight. "Maya, which hospital do you work at? Which department?" Dad waved his hand. "Ryan, tell Jade about the fishing trip with Uncle Earl." Jade did not move. She kept her eyes on me. I said quietly, "St. David's Children's, pediatric speech therapy." Jade's hand stopped moving. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she looked at Ryan. Her voice dropped slightly. "You told me she volunteers at a hospital." Ryan shifted in his seat. He picked up his fork, put it back down. Jade turned back to the table. Her voice was steady, clear. Everyone could hear it. "I need to tell you all something." The table went quiet. My dad frowned. My Aunt Linda sat forward. Grandma cupped her ear. Jade took a breath. 2 years ago, my little brother Sam was in a car accident. He was 4 years old. The impact injured his brain, and he stopped speaking completely. The doctors told us he might never speak normally again. My mother did not sleep for weeks. My father stopped eating. Donna Harmon covered her mouth. My dad put on his sympathy face, the one he uses at funerals. Jade continued, "I drove to that hospital every Monday and Wednesday and sat outside the therapy room while Sam screamed through his sessions. He was scared. He was angry. He hated going." She paused. But there was one therapist who never gave up on him. She got on the floor with him, face to face, eye level, She never stood over him and talked down. She learned his favorite cartoon so she could use the characters during hard exercises. She came in on her day off once when Sam had a really bad night. She brought him a small toy car and sat with him on the mat until he calmed down. I stared at my plate. My throat tightened. Sam said his first full sentence 8 months ago, Jade said. Her voice cracked. He said, "I want to go to the park." 5 words. My mom fell to the floor crying. My dad called our whole family. 5 words that we had been waiting 2 years to hear. She stopped. She looked directly at me. "Maya," she said quietly, "do you remember a little boy named Sam? Brown eyes, afraid of the waiting room chairs?" Every head at the table turned to me. I set my cup down. My voice was almost steady. "Sam Reyes. He used to hide behind his mother's legs for the first 10 minutes of every session." Jade's eyes filled with tears. Her chin shook once. She pressed her lips together hard. "That is my brother." The dining room went completely silent, the kind of silence that fills a room from the floor up. Ryan's mouth opened. Nothing came out. My Aunt Linda made a small, broken sound and covered her face. Grandma leaned forward, her old hand reaching across the table to cover mine. She did not say a word. She just held on. My dad picked up his glass, put it down, picked it up again. He looked like a man who had just realized he had been reading the wrong scoreboard his whole life. Jade turned to face him. Her voice was gentle, but it did not move. "Mr. Cole, you told me Maya volunteers. What she does is a licensed medical profession. She has a master's degree. She gave my brother his voice back. That is not volunteering. That is saving a child's life." My dad's neck went red. It started at the collar and climbed. He opened his mouth. My Aunt Linda spoke before he could. Her voice was quiet, but every person heard it. "Richard, she told you 3 times what her degree was. You said, 'That is nice,' and changed the subject." Silence. I looked at my father. Really looked. Past the coach posture. Past the bluster. A 62-year-old man who lost his wife and his identity in the same 2 years and never learned how to carry either loss. That made it worse, not better. But it made it human. I kept my voice steady. "Dad, I have driven to this house 11 times since Mom died. Every time I cook, I clean, I set the table, I carry the plates. And every time you introduce me as someone who helps out. I have a master's degree. Last year, I helped 12 children find their voices. 12 families got their child back." He opened his mouth, closed it. "You did not even notice." He sat back. His hand found the edge of the table and held on. From across the room, Grandma's thin voice cut through the quiet. Just 2 words. "Good girl." I drove home that night with my mother's painted birds in the back seat, buckled in with the seatbelt, because I did not trust the highway curves with them loose. 3 days later, Ryan called me. His voice was different, stripped of the easy confidence he usually carries. He said, Jade and I talked. A lot. I told Dad you are a speech-language pathologist. I used those exact words. I said, "Thank you, Ryan." He said, "I also stopped the yard sale. Mom's birds are back on the shelf." I did not speak for a moment. He said, "I know it is not enough." I said, "It is a start." 6 weeks after that dinner, my dad called me at 7 in the morning. A long pause. Then, "Is there anything I can do, Maya?" 5 words from a man who spent 30 years giving orders and never once asking questions. 5 words that cost him something real. I said, "Next time you introduce me, say, 'This is my daughter Maya. She is a speech therapist.' That is all I have ever asked." The clock ticked. 4 full beats. He said, "I can do that." Then he said, "Your mother's birds are on the shelf in the living room. The little blue one with the yellow wing, that was her favorite." He knew. He had always known. He just never said it. "It is my favorite too," I said. That was the most honest conversation we have ever had. I do not know if my father will fully change. Old habits do not disappear after one dinner. But I know this. I am not waiting for his approval anymore. I am done shrinking myself so other people can feel comfortable.
The children I work with see me every single day. Not as a daughter, not as a helper, as the person who shows up when it is hard and stays until it gets better. Last week, Eli, the little boy who said 3 words that Wednesday evening, walked into our session, sat down, and said, "Can we do the story one again?" 7 words. I had to turn away so he would not see me cry. That is why I do this. Not for a trophy, not for a toast, just for that. If you are sitting at a table where no one really sees you, where you cook the food and carry the plates and smile through introductions that erase you, I want you to hear this. You do not have to keep being invisible to keep the peace. You are allowed to stand up. Not to scream, not to storm out, just to say clearly and calmly, "I am here. I matter. And I will not pretend otherwise." That is my story. If it made you feel something, drop a comment below. Tell me about the moment you decided to stop being invisible. I read every single one. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. Share it with someone who needs to hear it today. I will see you in the next one.